everyone joining in. We'll just give it a minute or two to let people flow into the webinar, and then we'll get started. Okay, I think we'll get started. I see the flow of participants is starting to slow down. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for Revolutionizing Your Ride and Finances. My name is Anna Schuett. I'm the Communications Director at Electric Mobility Canada. I'll be moderating the session and monitoring the chat, highlighting some of your questions for the question period at the end of the presentation. Please note that we are not accountants, so we will do our best to answer your questions, but you may have to take your more detailed financial questions to your own accountant. Before we get started, I would like to briefly tell you about Electric Mobility Canada, or EMC as our friends like to call us. Electric Mobility Canada is the national electric mobility industry association that works to advance electric transportation in order to support the Canadian economy while fighting climate change and air pollution. Our mission is to enable and accelerate the transition to sustainable electric mobility in Canada through advocacy, collaboration, education, and thought leadership, with the ultimate goal of creating a cleaner, healthier, and more prosperous future for all Canadians. Our vision is to be the unifying and authoritative voice for the transition to electric mobility across Canada. We are a member-based organization with 3 strategic focus areas: driving advocacy and policy, serving as a hub for collaboration and learning, and establishing thought leadership. And now to introduce you to our presenters. We have Cara Clairman, President and CEO of Plug and Drive; Joanna Kyriazis, the Director of Public Affairs at Clean Energy Canada; and Danielle Breton, President and CEO of Electric Mobility Canada. Over to you, Danielle.
Merci, Anna. So I'm very happy to be here because I really wanted to do something about this fiscal incentive for electric cars for self-employed workers and businesses, because I have been talking about this for, believe it or not, 5 years. So this program was adopted in 2019, March 19, 2019. I remember writing about this in the paper, doing interviews about this program. And it seems, if you could change the slide, Anna, please. It seems that after 5 years, we've had a big problem with that program, because the vast majority of car dealers, car manufacturers, consumers, and even accountants still don't know about it. So this means that tens of thousands of Canadians have left tens of thousands of dollars on the table. And when people say, yeah, we would like to have EVs, but some of them are expensive. Actually, this is a great program that hardly anybody knows about. So this is why I asked Cara Clairman and Joanna Kyriazis to join us, because they do great work as well when it comes to EV industry incentives, education, which is so badly needed. So this, after 5 years, it seems that we have to do this, because it seems that car manufacturers and dealers and accountants and even the federal government is not educating and informing people enough on this topic. Next slide, Anna. So, Cara, could you explain what is a ZEPV?
Yes, my pleasure. And thanks so much, Danielle, for including me in this important subject. So the ZEPV, zero emission passenger vehicle, and in the if you look it up, you'll find there's something called Class 54, which is describing which vehicles are part of this program. Essentially, it's battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles that will qualify. All of them actually will qualify for this program.
And hydrogen cars for the very few that
Yes,
are
of course, for
being
those
driven
few
around
that
Canada. Yeah,
yeah, for
exactly.
those few people who have hydrogen vehicles as well. Yes, of course.
Exactly. Next slide. Joanna, your turn.
So Danielle mentioned that tens of thousands of Canadians are not taking advantage of this program when they otherwise could have, and it's actually more in the magnitude of millions. So those who are eligible for this tax benefit are either people who are self-employed or own businesses. And we've got the stats here on the slide. In Canada, there are at least 2.7 million self-employed workers and over 1 million businesses in Canada, all of whom could be taking advantage of this incentive, and many of whom are not.
Yeah. So, Cara, give us some numbers that people are waiting for. These are the 2024 calculations. So,
Right.
could you say a few words about this?
Sure. So if you buy an electric vehicle or a hydrogen vehicle that's under $61,000. Now, by the way, I don't want you to get confused by this because all vehicles do qualify, but we're in this particular slide just talking about the ones that are under 61,000. You can see the amount you get back varies by province, and it varies by your income, by your revenue into your business. So let's say you're self-employed and your net revenue is $50,000 and you live in Ontario. So you go to the top of the chart there and you see that you'd get a rebate of just over $9,000. And of course, you know that the federal rebate that's cash right off the top that you could get at the dealer is $5,000. So this is really significant. If your net revenue is $100,000, you can get more than $11,000 back in terms of your tax benefit here. So unbelievable. And then you see if your income is higher, 230,000, it's over $14,000 back. So these are big rebates and much better than the $5,000 you can get as a consumer. So we're really trying to, with this webinar, encourage people who are self-employed or have a business to use this rebate program, which is better economically than the $5,000 rebate.
Yeah. So these numbers obviously are approximations because, I mean, you can make a bit more money, a bit less money. The car can be a bit higher, the more expensive, less expensive. We took the business case of 70% of the time of the mileage is used for work. So if you do it 50% of the time, you get less money. But some people use their electric vehicles 80, 90, 100% of the time for work. So these are approximations, but they give you, I think, a pretty good idea on how much money you can get from the government. Obviously, it's not a point of sale rebate, but it's a fiscal deduction. So you get the money back when you're income tax. So, Joanna, would you like to speak about the rebate if you buy an electric car above the $61,000 threshold?
This slide right here.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. So just to run through some of the numbers here, let's do a particularly beneficial one. Let's say you live in Nova Scotia and your business makes a net revenue of over $230,000. You could get, almost $25,000 back per vehicle here. So yeah, again, if you're self-employed, if you own a business and you're using this vehicle for work 70% of the time, then here are the various amounts that you could get back depending on where in Canada you live and how much net revenue you're bringing in.
And if you look at the average across Canada, it is pretty significant, $12,000 to $18,000. And no one knows about this. To me, I have to tell you, after 5 years, I'm stunned when I look at these numbers. Next slide, Anna, please. So let's take two examples, the Nissan Ariya and the Nissan Leaf. Cara, would you like to speak to the difference? Let's start with the Nissan Leaf.
Sure.
Okay, show it the next slide, Anna.
Okay, so you can see here that again, depending on again how much you use the car for work, we kept the same assumptions of 70% of the time. You're going to get anywhere from $9,000 to $14,000 back, depending on how much net revenue you bring in. And that's for the 2024 calculations, right? That's this year.
That's for Ontario.
This is an Ontario example, yes. And
So
that's
let's
for a leaf right here. You can see the leaf here.
let's show the next slide for the area.
And the area, a little bit more expensive vehicle than the Leaf. And you can see, you know, you see the higher purchase price, and see now you're gonna get back anywhere from $9,000 to almost $18,000 back. And so, of course, you know, and by the way, you can't take advantage of both the $5,000 and this. So it's an either or. So, you know, if you know about this, you're gonna choose this.
Obviously. Next slide, Anna. So some people might ask the question, well, if I'm self-employed and I own a gas car, I still can get, fiscal deduction. Yes, but it will be lower. So I took a look at the Honda Civic Touring, which is sold at approximately $37,000, and this Nissan Leaf SV that started at 44 grand. And the difference in favor of the zero emission vehicle will be you'll get more than $5,000 more if you make $50,000. If you make $100,000, you'll make almost $6,500 more. So it is worth going to electric, not only because it's good for the environment, but when you go from gas to electric, you will save more money. Next slide. This one is important. Carol, Joanna, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, and just one comment on the previous slide is we're talking about how much more money you can get off up front for an EV. But then, of course, there's all the cost savings that you can get once you own the EV on fuel and maintenance, since they're so much cheaper to fuel and maintain than comparable gas models.
Yeah.
So yeah, in Canada, the federal government offers purchase incentives for EVs, and then a number of provincial governments do as well. If you take advantage of that federal tax measure that this whole webinar is about, you can also, or you cannot stack it with the federal purchase rebate. However, you can stack it with one of the provincial rebates that are available across the country. So here's the map of the existing provincial rebates available. Quebec's being the most generous for now.
For now.
And we'll note that next week Manitoba will be releasing its 2024 budget, and we are hoping to see an EV rebate, and have reason to believe there might be an EV rebate in that budget as well. So then we'll be coloring in one more province on the map here. But if you take some of those pretty massive amounts that we've been presenting and then add another $25,000 to $7,000, you're taking a pretty big dent out of the purchase price of that new electric vehicle.
Exactly. So just to give you an example, in 2019, go back, Anna. In 2019, when I bought my electric car, I did take advantage of the federal fiscal deduction. I got $21,000 back. So GST, PST, and income tax return. Plus, back then, the rebate was at $8,000. So I got $29,000 back for the purchase of my electric car, because back then in 2019, I was self-employed. I was not working at EMC. So it's a big deal. It is very, very significant and very interesting for people who are self-employed or businesses. Next slide, Cara, would you like to say a word about this?
Sure. And just another important point, if it hasn't been said already, is that you all know, I'm sure, that the $5,000 federal rebate only applies to vehicles below a certain price point. So if in 2023 you bought an EV that was above 65,000 if it's a car, or 70,000 if it's a light duty truck, it's actually not too late to take advantage of the 2023 fiscal deduction and actually get a tax break on the car you bought last year.
And Cara, would you like to say a word about the next slide? Because this is significant, because now the fiscal deduction is at 75% for 2024, but in 2023, it was 100%.
Right, right. So if you happen to have bought an electric car and you have your own business or own a business, and you bought this car that was above the threshold for the $5,000 incentive, you're not just going to get this 75% that's offered now in 2024. You're going to get the 100%, which was offered in 2023. So this just gives you, again, a calculation for Ontario. If the revenue was 50, you can see 100 or 230,000. You can get as much as $22,000. You know, it's just an incredible incentive to choose electric.
And on top of that, go back, Anna. You're going. Anna, I think, is in a rush. So, and on top of that, you know, that capital cost allowance or the fiscal deduction, because you know, it's funny because some people call it the capital cost allowance, some other call it the federal fiscal deduction. But all in all, not only can you take advantage of this if you buy the car, but also if you buy the charger, isn't it, Joanna?
Yes, yes. There's also similar tax benefits available if you buy a charger. And I'm seeing at least one question in the chat about if you kind of called this your zero emission vehicle automotive equipment.
Yeah.
It looks like the same enhanced capital cost allowance applies for that as well. It's just under a different part of the tax code, class 56.
Exactly. And one thing that is important for us to mention, that this applies only for new vehicles. This doesn't work for used vehicles. Next slide. So, as Cara mentioned, to take advantage of the full fiscal deduction, a self-employed worker or business must not use the $5,000 point of sale purchase rebate. So this is very important because let's face it, many of my friends have bought electric cars. They go to a dealer, and none of them so far, none of them have asked my friend customers if they were self-employed or own a business. And then they just check the box, $5,000. And then if you don't ask that person to uncheck the box so you can take advantage of the fiscal deduction, then, well, you cannot take advantage of the full fiscal deduction. So it's very important moving forward that if you are self-employed or if you are a car dealer, that you ask that question. Are you self-employed? Do you own a business? And then if the answer is yes, you look into it with your accountant. I'll be very blunt here. Many of my friends have asked me if there were any type of rebates. I talked to them about the fiscal deduction. They went to their accountant. Their accountant said to them, not all of them, but some of them said, oh, it doesn't work. It's not a good program. It's not worth it. And one of my friends, he bought 2 electric pickup trucks, and he was told by his accountant back in the day that he could not take advantage of it. So I recommended that he went to another accountant. The accountant put that in, and he saved $60,000. So he changed accountant. So this is very important. A lot of accountants don't know about this. And last but not least, this program will end in 2027. Next slide. So if you have any useful links, we will put that in. Anna, could you give the details regarding when that's going to be online and everything?
Yes, excuse me. Yes, of course. So by tomorrow, all this information will be online as well. We've included the contact information for our lovely presenters here. Our registered attendees here will get an email with the link to the PowerPoint, the recording, and some more information, including the chart that we shared earlier on.
Just to make sure that people understand, although we are not accountants, all these calculations have been made by accountants. It's not Daniel Breton or Cara or Joanna that these calculations. So these are calculations that have been made by a professional. So are there any questions that people are asking, Anna?
Yes, I am going to open up the chat now. Okay. Interesting. So it sounds here that the accounting world needs to be educated, as we know. Sarah mentioned that she asked her accountant about this, and they talked her out of it, said it was too much paperwork.
For the accountant?
I'm not sure. So she's asking if there are recommendations for accountants who are familiar with this program and could help some of them. some of us who want to take advantage of this awesome program?
So that's a great question. And you know what? I think that we will look for accountants who know about this and don't consider that this is too much paperwork. Because I can tell you that the person who did the paperwork that helped me with this did the work. There was no issue at all. So when people say it's too much paperwork, I'm sorry. To me, this is a BS, frankly. Does it matter if you only purpose your vehicle for 25% of for work purposes? You have to talk to your accountant if you have a good accountant. But I mean that generally people who use their vehicle for a work purpose, it's around 60 to 80%. 25%, I don't have the answer. I work in the home electrification space and see the same thing. Industry needs to be better informed as customers are asking. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm just reading through the Q&As now. That's right. Kevin's asking since his wife received the $5,000 federal rebate when they bought the EV, she cannot take advantage of the enhanced CCA for EVs. That's correct, Kevin.
There's a question above there, Anna, about not being available in Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. There's no stacking. There's no stacking in those provinces. So when you probably thought that because you saw the map. The map just shows where there are provincial incentives that stack on top of this fiscal deduction, but the fiscal deduction is available all across Canada.
Yeah. It's just that the provinces of Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta do not offer additional provincial.
Right. I assume that's why that was the confusion. Yeah.
But I mean, after all, Saskatchewan and Alberta offer a tax on EVs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a different conversation.
Someone is asking, from my understanding, the CCA that would occur over and above 61K essentially disappears after someone opts to take advantage of this accelerated program. Is that accurate? This is a two-part question. So that's the first part.
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question, because a vehicle above $61,000 can take advantage of the fiscal deduction. It's just that your threshold is at 61. Let's say the car is at $80,000. You can only use $61,000 out of the $80,000 in your fiscal deduction.
Right.
I hope I'm clear.
I think the question is, normally the capital cost allowance deduction happens bit by bit, year over year, and this incentive pulls it all up to year one.
That's not the case anymore, even for gas cars. So it's the first year.
And so what happens to the $19,000 that is not claimed in year one? I think the question is, does that just disappear? Like, you can't claim that even in year 2 or 3?
Oh, I don't have that answer to that. I don't have the answer to that question. I doubt because it has to be new. So you cannot, say I'm going back 2 years behind because I had the car and I bought it 2 years ago. Is that the question?
I think in other instances for a capital cost, you can maybe not for vehicles, but you can kind of you put it across multiple years.
You could spread it. That was the case for gas cars until I think 2 years ago. And now it's just the first year.
Yeah.
When you buy the gas or electric car. But the threshold for a gas car is $36,000, while the threshold for electric car is $61,000. And when I'm saying electric PHEV and hydrogen.
So probably best to ask an accountant about that particular question.
Yeah.
Okay, and the second part of that question, if you count your vehicle as automotive equipment rather than a passenger vehicle, how does this apply?
It doesn't. Automotive equipment is for a charger, but it's not for the vehicle. You cannot count your vehicle as automotive equipment. It's a passenger vehicle. That's why it's called a zero-emission passenger vehicle incentive program.
Okay, thank you for that. Someone's asking, I'm from India, and how does the impact or demands of commercial EV in Canada? I'm not sure I understand the question. So we'll just skip to,
I'm from India, and how does this impact of our demands of commercial EVs in Canada? I don't know. It has nothing to do with the fact that it has nothing to do. We're talking passenger vehicles here. I mean, this fiscal deduction is also good for MHDVs, but that's a whole different conversation. Over a multiple year term, you can claim up to $30,000 purchase price of the vehicle over standard amortization. Not anymore. So my accountant informed me that even for gas vehicles now, that's not how it works. I think it was changed last year. You can talk about that with your accountant. What would you recommend for a fleet that are buying medium and heavy duty vehicles not to take the federal provincial rebates and use the enhanced CCA? If this, as I said, this is a different conversation for medium and heavy duty vehicles. So that's it. I think that's pretty much all the questions that we have.
yeah, that's all I can see as well, unless someone wants to throw in a last minute one. Okay, I suppose we'll end it off here. I'd like to thank our presenters, Danielle, Cara, and Joanna. As I mentioned before, you'll be emailed tomorrow with a bunch of information, including the slide deck and the recording. Thanks for attending, and I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks. Stephen Beda says, can you please reshare the slides from the beginning of the presentation with the charts of savings? We will share all that. It's going to be online tomorrow, isn't it, Anna?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And Sarah Grant, that's funny. This is great. Just need to find an accountant. Because the person she spoke to said too much paperwork. Well, actually, you know,
that's their job.
That's their job. Exactly.
All right.
Well,
thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks a lot, everyone. And it's going to be online by tomorrow. Okay. And please do share that information with other people. They need to know. Okay.
All right. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.